I want to play you this. It is the trailer of the new movie, which is called The Racer. It's in Irish cinemas right now. We're going to talk to the director, Kieron Walsh, next.
I take this opportunity to say what an honour it is to host the first Tour de France outside mainland Europe.
Dom is going to be riding in the Tour de France on Saturday.
Are you going to win?
No, I'm a support rider. I use my energy for the lead rider to win.
Don't you ever want to win yourself?
Of course. But that's a dream.
I hear this is your last tour. Tough shit.
I need to know about next year. My contract.
You're nearly 39 years old. What do you want me to say?
The team needs your focus. Nothing to distract you.
What's the worst that can happen? If you don't take it, you won't win.
Now give me.
Why risk your life like that?
Everybody does it.
You're not even allowed to win. You're a loser. Professional loser.
Tour starts tomorrow, 10 a.m. After the grounded part, you're out of contract, free to go.
Without a bike, I'm nobody.
3, 2, 1.
Kieron, good morning to you. How you doing?
Good morning to you. Thanks for having me on.
Watching the trailer, what's that like?
I could only hear it, and it sounds pretty energetic to me.
It is. Is it hair on the back of your neck territory at this stage when the movie's out there and there's nothing you can do, or is it really nerve-wracking to...
It's terribly nerve-wracking, and I've got to say more so than ever because of the pandemic, because not all the cinemas are open, and a lot of the cinemas, the exhibitors are kind of scared about the future of cinema, to be honest. So therefore, they've put a lot of old movies back into the cinemas, like Elf and It's a Wonderful Life and Love Actually. And all I can say is, no, actually, go see The Racer.
Does this come from a passion for cycling yourself, Kieron? Does it come from a nostalgia of, I guess, that Grand Départ in 1998?
It certainly does come from a nostalgia from that time. I can't say as I was a huge cycling fan when I first started working on this picture, but actually what fascinated me more than anything was trying to tell the story of these domestiques, of these support riders, the guys who sacrificed their entire lives for somebody else. It takes a particular kind of man or particular kind of person really to decide that they are satisfied with that role in their lives. And I found that aspect of the sport fascinating. I remember even at the time, like 22 years ago now, believe it or not, I remember like everybody in Ireland at the time pretty much thinking that it was just everybody gets on a bike and whoever's the fastest. But, I found out that obviously, cycling it's a team sport for individuals, and the idea of these domestiques working around sprinters and working around guys who are going to win the jerseys, I just thought it was amazing. So it's a character study really about this particular domestique who's reaching the end of the road in his career.
And not only willing to put himself through the physical toll that the road brings, but also through the physical and well-being dangers that come with blood doping, which is kind of done in such an unadulterated way in the film. And part of you, while watching it, thinks there's going to be some sort of realization at the end, that all doping is bad and all that. But I think that the message of the film really is that this was a real part of the day-to-day life of being a cyclist. And if anything, those people who would have come into it with the ambitions of being clean would have been broken by the system.
Yeah, it was endemic at the time, really, and that's why I have that innocent character, Dardon, who's just come on board the tour, his first tour, and he thinks he can do it clean, and he's, full of ambition to do that, which is terrific. But, you can just see that he's going to get ground down by the system. And the irony of the situation is that this particular tour in '98, everybody thought, well, sorry, the officials, the people who organised the tour and owned the Tour de France, thought that this was potentially going to be the last tour ever, because it was so rife with drugs, and the riders were going on strike, and it was just a terrible situation. It was called, in the end, the Tour de Dopage, or the Tour of Shame, or Tour de Farce even. So they decided that they were going to put in some very heavy structures and testing, and really kind of like try and stamp the drug out of the sport, all drugs out of the sport. And for the next 7 years, Lance Armstrong won the Tour de France.
Yeah, he came and saved the whole thing.
Great job, didn't
he?
Yeah, he did, certainly.
Kieron, what research went into the scenes where cyclists are blood doping in their hotel room? Because it seems pretty authentic.
Well, you know, believe it or not, it's actually quite hard to find anybody who's prepared to talk about it. And I did. You know, I went to some guys who were in the tour 22 years ago. One particular guy who won the first stage that year in the Phoenix Park. And I spoke to him, and I gave him the script and asked him, would he have a look through it? Because I wanted to see about authenticity. And when it came to those scenes, because I kind of was saying, look, can you give me an indication as to whether I'm in the right world with those scenes? I knew I kind of was, but I wanted absolute confirmation. But there was silence. It was just kind of like they neither, this is a couple of times, they neither said they were or they said they weren't. But because by saying anything at all is kind of implicating themselves, and they don't want to do that, you know. But there's plenty of material written about it. There's plenty of there is some firsthand you know, information in books by people like, you know, Charlie Veglius, the Domestique. His book is called Domestique. There's also a book called End of the Road by Alistair Fotheringham, which is all about the '98 tour. And there's information in that. Like, all of this is kind of speculative, and apart from some of the firsthand accounts. So, you know, we did our best to try and make it as authentic as possible.
I think one of the books that you could add into that list as well is Tyler Hamilton's book, who would be on the show with us a couple of times. Like, a really kind of horrifying picture he paints of some of the scenes that really actually haven't seen in film until this, you know, the heart monitor dipping below a certain point, having to wake up, having to get on the bike. I mean, that's the exact sort of picture he paints in his book. As I say, not just the physical toll that the road would take on you, but like your livelihood being put at risk for supporting another rider, basically.
Yeah, I mean, Tyler's book is such a page turner. I mean, it really is. It was like probably the most thrilling of all the cycling books that I'd read, you know. I just couldn't put it down, you know. And some of them, like Domestique by Charlie Veglius, it was very interesting, but it wasn't like the torrential read that Tyler's book was. And it really kind of had a feeling of a thriller about it almost, you know, and I wanted to sort of get that energy into the film. So he was very helpful, that book was.
Can I just ask them, what's your theory on what Festina and that affair did for, I guess, Irish cycling or cycling in Ireland, for this amazing moment to be remembered for one thing only, this amazing Irish moment to be remembered for a huge drug bust? I mean, there was obviously a great boom in the late 80s, but I wonder did this actually set it back in terms of the vantage point that Irish people had of the Tour de France? That's
a good question. I mean, the Tour never came back. The Giro arrived back. Or arrived, should I say? You know, you'd really have to speak to cyclists about that. You know, I know that it's like a blot on the landscape. It really is, and you can't say the word Tour de France in Ireland without the kind of whole thing about drugs coming up in conversation. I know that, as I said, that like, you know, Paul McQuaid brought in the blood passport as a result of what happened in Ireland in '98, but it didn't seem to really kind of connect. It depended on how sophisticated your drug taking was, and obviously Lance Armstrong and Michele Ferrari had a very sophisticated system that they could actually, and the money to be able to work around it. But you know, Ireland is still kind of punching above its weight in terms of cycling with people like Sam Bennett, you know, so it obviously didn't deter the youngsters.
Kieron, I should mention Kieran Cassidy, who's having a career year at the moment, a co-producer of Where's George Gibney, and now this at the same time as well, coming out. I know it's like an overnight success after 25 years of incredible hard work, but like he's having quite a good time at the moment.
That's an amazing. Where is George Gibney? I mean, I actually learned to swim in New Park Comprehensive, where George used to work. I was never taught by him, thankfully, but it's a remarkable piece of work. I mean, it's really something else. Everybody should listen to it. But Kieron came up with the original idea for the racer. It was called the Domestique then, and he was, as you know, he's fascinated with sport. And just kind of came up with an idea of, I think it was for a short film originally, actually, the idea of these guys getting out of bed and getting onto the rollers in the middle of the night. That was kind of like the kernel of the film, and it kind of grew from there. And
it's an Irish production, Katie Holly as well.
Yes, that's right. Katie produced it along with Yvonne Donoghue, Blinder Films production. We made most of the film in Ireland, but also we shot in Luxembourg because it was a Luxembourg co-production. And Belgium was involved as well. That's why there's a couple of Belgian actors in it. Belgium, which is obviously particularly Flanders, is the home of cycling, really, much more so than France even.
Well, just on that, are the actors trained cyclists? Did you have to actually make them look like they knew what to do with a bike? Because I presume that was a challenge because it looks really good.
Well, actually, Louis Talp is a total cycle fanatic.
Right.
He happens to be a household name in Belgium as a kids' TV actor, believe it or not. He's a character called Mega Toby, which is every kid knows who Mega Toby is, even though he hasn't made the show for a long time, but they keep repeating it the whole time, So you can't walk down the street without being stopped by various different people to get a selfie done with him. So he was very keen to try and shake that off, actually, to be honest. And he does Ironman 3 times a year. He actually knows a lot of the cyclists. He knows the quick step guys. He got me onto the bus, the quick step bus, about 2 years ago to see how these guys live now and what the ride had, the tour bus, and go with them for a race and stuff like that, which was a real insight. Tom Steels is their director sportif there. So he was really, really helpful. And it just so happened that he is a cycling fanatic and a really terrific actor and a household name over there. So all of this stuff came together. And for him, it was a dream come true. For me, I got really lucky. We had a boot camp for all the riders for about 10 days in Luxembourg, where, we had to, with the help of Paul McQuaid, our director, our kind of technical director, we had to get everybody to learn how to ride together, in a pack, like in a peloton as a team, which is more difficult than you'd imagine, because they were all terrified of hitting off each other and falling off their bikes. But Paul and Louis managed to get them to feel confident about riding together. Louis became the domestique for the boot camp and for the actors in the team, and kind of brought them all together. So he was really, really good. And Matteo Simoni, who plays Tartar, the Italian guy, he's a pretty fit guy as well. These guys, modern actors, keep themselves pretty fit, so which I'm lucky about,
I should say as well, for anybody who goes to see it, the soundtrack is on Spotify as well, and I don't think I'll be the only one who'll be digging that out after watching it multiple times.
Listen,
yeah, there was a screening the other night, and people were saying, "My God, I want to go dancing." It was nice to hear.
The connection between drugs and dancing is one that many people have made before. Kieron, the advice to everybody is don't go and see Elf. Forget about It's a Wonderful Life. You'll catch it on TV3 on Christmas morning anyway. Go this weekend.
Yes, and no, actually.
No, actually. Listen, best of luck and congratulations.
Thank you very much for having me on. I'm really delighted you enjoyed the picture.
No worries. That's Kieron Walsh, director of the new Irish sports movie that you've all got to go out and